In the autumn of 1649, Ireland held its breath. The English Civil War was over, and a new, formidable power had emerged, the Commonwealth of England. At its head stood Oliver Cromwell, and his gaze was now fixed across the Irish Sea. His new model army, tempered in the fires of war, was coming. The objective was simple: crush the Royalist cause that had found refuge in Ireland and secure the island for Parliament. Control of the eastern ports was everything, and it was upon these vital gateways that the storm was about to break. After King Charles III was executed, a fragile alliance formed between the Irish Confederates and the English Royalists, led by the Duke of Ormond. They knew they couldn't face Cromwell's veterans in an open field. Their strategy was one of attrition. At a council of war in Drogheda, they decided to heavily garrison key port towns and order them to hold out for as long as possible. The plan was to let the brutal Irish winter, with its allies of hunger and disease, wear down the invaders. It was a sound plan, in theory. But they hadn't counted on Cromwell's secret weapon, a massive, modern artillery train that would make their medieval walls obsolete. The precedent had already been set just a month earlier at Drogheda. After his cannons breached the walls, Cromwell's forces stormed the town. What followed was a brutal sack. Most of the 2,600-man garrison was killed. Cromwell himself later admitted this was a calculated act of terror, a psychological blow meant to discourage any further resistance. With Drogheda subdued, the new model army marched south. Their next target was Wexford, a major port and a nest for privateers who plagued English shipping. As Cromwell's army advanced, supported by a fleet that carried its supplies and heavy guns, the shadow of Drogheda fell long before it. The defenders of Wexford knew their turn had come. The siege of Wexford began on October 2, 1649. It started not with a bang, but with a tense standoff. As Cromwell's 6,000 troops surrounded the town, it became a battle of wits between the commanders. The first move was swift. A detachment led by Cromwell's subordinate, Michael Jones, captured the nearby fort at Rosslare. This gave the parliamentarian fleet a safe harbor to land its powerful siege guns. With his artillery in place, Cromwell offered terms to the town's governor, David Sinnott. The offer was clear. The soldiers could leave, but without their weapons. The town itself would be spared from plunder. It seemed like a reasonable offer, and the town's civilian leaders were inclined to accept. But Sinnott was a military man, bound by Ormond's orders to delay at all costs. Every day he held out was a victory, so he played for time and rejected the initial terms. His confidence was soon boosted by reinforcements. First, 1,500 men from Viscount Iva's regiment slipped into the town. Then another 600 soldiers arrived, sent by Ormond. With a garrison now numbering nearly 4,000 men, Sinnott felt he could withstand a long siege. The negotiations stalled. The time for talking was over. The strategic chess match was about to become a brutal, bloody fight to the death. October 11th. This was the day it all went wrong. It began with the thunder of Cromwell's cannons pounding the walls of Wexford Castle, which stood separate from the town's main defenses. As the artillery tore holes in the stone, one final round of negotiations began. This time, Sinnott, the town's commander, agreed to Cromwell's original terms. But when his representatives met with Cromwell, they came with a new list of demands. They wanted guarantees of religious freedom, for the garrison to leave with their weapons, and for the privateer ships in the harbor to be given safe passage. Cromwell's patience was gone. He saw this as a stalling tactic. He curtly rejected the new proposals, offering only quarter for life for the soldiers and a promise to protect the town from plunder. The negotiations were finished. At that exact moment, the governor of the castle, James Stafford, surrendered it directly to Cromwell's forces. In a catastrophic failure of communication, he never told Sinnott or the other commanders. Parliamentarian troops poured into the surrendered castle, which gave them a direct gateway into the town itself. The main garrison was caught completely by surprise. Chaos erupted. Having gained the walls, Commonwealth soldiers unleashed a wave of violence. The sack of Wexford had begun. It was horrific. In the bloody fighting and plundering that followed, between 500 and 2,000 of Wexford's defenders and citizens were killed. Another 300 drowned as they tried to escape in panic across the River Slaney. In stark contrast, Cromwell's army lost only 20 men. The question that would echo through history was asked almost immediately: who was responsible for the massacre? The fall of Wexford was a turning point. Its strategic impact was immediate and devastating for the Royalist cause. First, it eliminated any realistic chance for the exiled King Charles II to land an army in Ireland. The Royalist fleet, now without a friendly port, was forced to flee to Portugal. Second, Wexford's role as a base for privateers was over. The parliamentarians captured over 80 ships, securing English trade in the Irish Sea. Third, the loss of the entire Wexford garrison was a crippling blow. The Duke of Ormond was left with a field army of fewer than 3,000 men, making any real resistance impossible. Of course, controversy swirled around Cromwell's personal responsibility. In his official report, he framed the slaughter as righteous revenge for the killing of Protestants in the 1641 rebellion. But some historians argue the assault began without his direct order and that he simply lost control of his men. Cromwell's own reaction was cold and pragmatic. He later wrote that he regretted the damage done to the town, mostly because it meant he couldn't use it for his army's winter quarters. While the scale of the killings at Wexford and Drogheda was shocking, it's important to see it in the context of the time. The wars of the Three Kingdoms had brutalized everyone. By 1649, attitudes had hardened. The sheer brutality at Wexford was unprecedented, but the harshness of the conflict was a grim reality of the era. This brutal reckoning would now send shockwaves across southern Ireland, hastening the collapse of the Royalist war effort. The 1649 campaign, despite losses to disease, was a stunning success for Cromwell. The twin hammer blows of Drogheda and Wexford had shattered the Royalist-Confederate alliance. In the aftermath, the fragile coalition broke down completely. Protestant Royalist garrisons in Cork and Munster switched sides and declared for Parliament. Ormond's strategy of attrition had failed, though it did take a heavy toll. Cromwell lost over 1,000 men to disease, including key commanders, forcing him to abandon a siege at Waterford. Elsewhere, the situation was just as dramatic. In Ulster, at the start of the campaign, Commonwealth forces held only the city of Derry. By December, they controlled the entire province. The fall of Wexford was a grim and pivotal moment. It didn't just seal the fate of a town, it broke the will of an entire alliance. The siege and its brutal conclusion accelerated the English conquest of Ireland, leaving a legacy of bitterness and pain that would echo for centuries. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this glimpse into a difficult chapter of history interesting, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more deep dives into the past. We'll see you in the next one.